In the heart of Africa, millions of farmers rise with the sun, working tirelessly to grow the food that feeds the continent. But despite their efforts, many of these farmers are trapped in a circle of poverty, barely able to make ends meet. The reason? A complex network of middlemen, brokers, traders, and intermediaries who profit at the expense of the very farmers they depend on. The agricultural sector in Africa is worth billions of dollars, but very little of that money makes its way back to the farmers. Instead, it is the middlemen who control the flow of goods from farm to market, reaping massive profits while farmers struggle to survive. This is the untold story of how Africa's agricultural wealth is being siphoned away by brokers, leaving the backbone of the continent, its farmers, increasingly impoverished.
It's very interesting indeed. People love to paint us as the villains in this story, like we are the ones keeping farmers poor. But it's not that simple. We provide a service that these farmers desperately need. Without us, how are they supposed to get their crops to the market? Many of them live in remote areas, far from the cities, with no roads or infrastructure. The reality is farmers need middlemen like us to connect them to buyers and the wider market.
In Africa's agricultural sector, middlemen, also known as brokers, have become the gatekeepers of the supply chain. These brokers buy crops directly from the farmers, sometimes at the farmer's gate itself, and then transport and sell the produce to larger markets in cities or even internationally. On paper, brokers provide a necessary service, connecting farmers to buyers and markets that will otherwise be out of reach. But in reality, they often exploit the very farmers they rely on, offering below market prices, manipulating measurements, and charging high fees for the transportation and storage. Brokers take a disproportionate share of the profit. Farmers, especially those in remote areas, are often left with no bargaining power, without direct access to urban markets or the ability to store and transport their goods. They must accept whatever price the brokers offer. As a result, farmers are forced to sell their produce at a fraction of its true value.
We take all the risk. We have to pay for the transportation, storage, and deal with market fluctuations. Sometimes we can buy produce at one price, but by the time we get to the city, the price has dropped. We absorb those losses, not the farmers. We are the ones who ensure that the produce gets from the farm to the market. And that's not easy. There is a lot of work involved. And yes, we make money for that service, but we are not stealing from farmers. Let's be clear. These farmers don't have the resources to transport their goods on their own. Most of them don't even have a way to get their produce out of their village. The roads are terrible, and the logistics are complicated. Without us, much of their harvest would go to waste. We are providing a vital link in the supply chain. Look, I understand farmers want higher prices for their crops, but the market is what it is. I can't pay them the price. I can't pay them the price that produce sells for in the city. I have to make a margin to cover my cost. There is transportation, loading fees, market taxes, and let's not forget, I'm taking on all the risk if something happens to the produce on the way. That's why I buy at a lower price. It's not because I want to cheat them. It's because I have to stay in business too.
The agricultural supply chain in Africa is heavily skewed in favor of brokers and large-scale buyers. By the time crops reach urban markets or export hubs, their prices have multiplied several times over, with each step of the supply chain taking a cut. But at the bottom of this chain, the very foundation, are the farmers, receiving only a small percentage of the final price. The inefficiencies in the supply chain only makes matters worse. Without proper infrastructure or access to markets, farmers are often forced to sell their crops at a loss or watch them rot in the fields. Meanwhile, brokers take advantage of these inefficiencies, driving prices even lower and pocketing the difference when they sell the produce at inflated price in urban centers.
We are part of a larger system and sometimes takes their cut along the way. By the time the produce reaches the markets, yes, it's worth a lot more than what the farmer got. But that's how business works. The farmer gets paid for growing, I get paid for transporting, and the retailer gets paid for selling. It's a chain. Everyone has a role, and everyone needs to make money. We are just one piece of the puzzle. It's easy to blame the brokers, but we are not the root cause of the problem. There is a bigger issue with the agricultural system in Africa. The infrastructure is poor, farmers lack access to markets, and there are no proper facilities for storing or processing crops. These are the things that keep farmers poor, not us. In fact, if the government invested in better roads, storage facilities, and direct market access, then maybe farmers wouldn't need us as much. But until that happens, we are the ones keeping the system moving. Farmers see us as the problem, but the truth is without us, many of them wouldn't sell their crops at all. It's a tough business for everyone. But I have a family to feed too. I'm not trying to get rich off the backs of farmers. I'm just trying to make a living. The same way they are. The system isn't perfect, but it's what we've got. And until something changes, we are all doing the best we can with what we have. People say we are raking in billions, but that's not the reality for most of us. Sure, there are big players in the industry making serious money, but for most of us, we are just middlemen trying to survive. If we want to change things, it's going to take more than pointing fingers at brokers. It's going to take real investment in the entire agricultural system, so that everyone from the farmer to the trader can benefit fairly.
One of the most powerful tools brokers use to control the market is information asymmetry. In many cases, farmers have little to no knowledge of the true market prices for their crops. Brokers, on the other hand, have direct access to market information and use this to their advantage, offering farmers a fraction of the true value while selling the produce at full price. Beyond controlling prices, brokers often manipulate weights and measures, further cheating farmers out of their rightful earnings. In many rural areas, brokers use their own scales, which are often inaccurate, deliberately underreporting the weight of the crops and paying farmers less than they are owed. The economic impact of the middlemen controls over the agricultural market is devastating for smallholder farmers. While brokers and traders rake in billions of dollars, farmers continue to grow poorer, unable to reinvest in their farms. Many are trapped in a circle of subsistence farming, where they barely grow enough food to feed their families, let alone turn a profit. Farmers who cannot earn fair prices for their crops have little to no capital to invest in improving their farms. Without access to modern equipment, fertilizers, or irrigation system, yields remain low, reinforcing the circle of poverty. This means that while the rest of the supply chain benefits, the people who actually produce the food remain at the mercy of brokers, unable to break free from their dependence. So, where does the money really go? Brokers may exploit farmers, but they are not the only ones profiting. Large-scale buyers, retail chains, and export companies also benefit from the low prices paid to farmers. By the time the produce reaches consumers, its price has increased multiple times over, with each stage of the supply chain taking its cut. As African agriculture becomes more integrated into global markets, this imbalance only grows. International demand for African produce is rising, with exports of fruits, vegetables, and cash crops increasing every year. But the benefits of this global trade rarely reach the farmers. Instead, brokers and international buyers pocket the profits while farmers continue to live in poverty.
Before we formed this cooperative, we were completely at the mercy of the brokers. They will come to our farms, dictate the price, and we had no choice but to accept whatever they offered. We had no direct access to the market, no control over the prices, and no say in how our hard work was valued. It felt like we were constantly being exploited, year after year. We would work so hard to grow the crops, but the little money we got in return was barely enough to survive, let alone reinvest in our farms. That's when a few of us decided enough was enough. We realized that individually we were powerless. But if we came together as a group, pooling our resources, our knowledge, and our crops, we could create leverage. That's how this cooperative was born. By forming a cooperative, we have been able to cut out the middlemen and sell our produce directly to buyers in the city. It wasn't easy at first, but with the time, we learned how to handle the logistics, the transport, and the marketing ourselves. Now, instead of waiting for brokers to come and dictate terms, we negotiate directly with the buyers. Whether it's a local wholesaler, a supermarket, or even exporting crops to international markets, we are the ones in control. We track market prices daily and we know exactly what our produce is worth. That knowledge gives us power. the kind of power we never had when we were dealing with brokers. And because we were working as a group, we can bargain for better deals. Buyers respect us more because they know we have quantity, quality, and consistency. We are no longer treated like small-scale farmers. We are treated like business partners. The biggest difference now is that the profit comes back to us where they belong. Before, the brokers were taking the lion's share, but now we see the value of our hard work. The extra money means we can reinvest in better seeds, fertilizer, and even machinery. It's helping us improve the quality of our produce and increase our yields. It's not just about money, it's about dignity. We feel empowered knowing that we can run our own businesses without being dependent on middlemen who don't care about us or our families. Our cooperative has also allowed us to support one another. We share resources, provide loans to members in need, and invest in storage facilities so that we don't have to sell during peak harvest when prices are lowest. We can now wait for better market conditions, giving us more control over the timing of our sales. It's not just about economic benefits. Being part of a cooperative has strengthened our sense of community. We are no longer isolated farmers struggling on our own. We have built something together, something that benefits all of us. We have shown that when farmers unite, we can break free from the cycle of exploitation. Other farmers in the area have seen the difference these cooperatives have made in our lives, and now they want to join us start their own. It's a movement that's growing across the country. For too long, we have been left at the bottom of the agricultural chain. But that's changing. We are reclaiming our power, and we are making sure that the future of farming is in the hands of those who actually do the farming.
But there is hope across Africa. Organizations and cooperatives are working to empower farmers by giving them direct access to markets, helping them negotiate fair prices, and teaching them how to bypass middlemen altogether. Technology is also playing a key role in leveling the playing field. With mobile phones and internet access, farmers can now check real-time market prices, communicate directly with buyers, and sell their produce through digital platforms. This cuts out the middlemen and ensure that farmers receive a fair share of the profits. For too long, African farmers have been at the mercy of middlemen, exploited by a system that rewards everyone but them. But the tide is turning. Through cooperation, technology, and a growing awareness of their rights, farmers are beginning to take back control. The fight for fairness is far from over, but the seeds of change have been planted. It's time for African farmers to reap the rewards of their labor. The future of agriculture and the continent depends on it.